Making friends. I wonder if you can relate to this. I was 29 years old. I was married. I had one child, a little baby. And I was in a religion that claimed to be the happiest religion on earth, made up of God's happy people. We were all one big family. And the videos that we saw on the broadcasting was people at conventions hugging, people going to the Kingdom Hall, all best friends. And the literature told us we were so happy. However, something to me didn't seem right because I had no friends. I had acquaintances. I had so-called brothers and sisters in the so-called truth. There's people that I knew in the congregation that I saw 2 or 3 times a week, but I couldn't really call them friends. They didn't invite me anywhere. In fact, the congregation that I was in and the congregation I was in previously was very cliquey. If you were an elder or in an elder's family, then you were popular. People invited you to parties and get-togethers and weddings. If you weren't in the clique, you weren't invited to anything. Unfortunately, that was me. I would spend my evenings either studying something or watching TV. And then the next day at the Sunday meeting, I'd hear about a congregation party or a party that someone had thrown, where pretty much everybody had gone to except me because nobody had told me. Nobody had invited me. I began to think to myself, what's wrong with me? Why do people want to hang around with me? Am I weird? And what's more frustrating is, out there in the world, there were people who wanted to be my friends. People I'd met in work or school. People who were quite honestly, nicer than Jehovah's Witnesses, more genuine than Jehovah's Witnesses. They wanted to be my friends because they saw something in me that they admired and liked. And yet I wasn't hanging around with these people because they were told they were bad association, and I believe that. Now, fast forward a year or two, and I'd eventually leave the Jehovah's Witnesses. And the problem there was that I had no friends. I had no friends when I was a Jehovah's Witness because they weren't my real friends anyway, and even if they were now shunning me. And I had no friends out there in the real world because I hadn't actually associated with them outside of work. I was suddenly 31 years old, starting my life from scratch. And I quickly realized I didn't know how to make friends. In the congregation, all you had to do was be a Jehovah's Witness, and everyone was supposedly your friend. It wasn't based on anything else. Friendships were based on that. Hell, even relationships are based on that. People have got married simply because they were of the opposite sex and they were both Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's it. Now, just for context, when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, my wife left me because her father, being an elder, told her that if she stayed with me, there's a chance that I could draw her out of the truth. So anyway, I had my own apartment, and I remember lying on the bed one day. I think it was a Thursday evening. I looked up at the ceiling and I thought to myself, well, this is it. This is your life. No friends, a daughter that I see 2 or 3 times a week, and a day job. Who am I? What do I want out of life? How do I even go for what I want? I had no direction, no goals, no plans, no family, and no friends. So I decided that I was going to do something radical, something that I'd always wanted to do as a Jehovah's Witness, but was never allowed to. I decided to live. No, I didn't decide to live. I decided to fucking live. From now on, I'm going to try everything that I wanted to try. And I developed a mantra, and it was this: fuck that shit. What that means was, I was going to try everything that I wanted to try. And if somebody was going to judge me for it, I would think, fuck that shit. I was going to do it anyway. The first thing that I did was join a class, an art class, a life drawing class. Because you see, life drawing wasn't just learning how to draw, it was learning how to draw naked models, which of course in the Jehovah's Witnesses wasn't allowed, and to me felt like a taboo. I was going to walk into a room with a group of strangers. One of them would be a paid model who would take his or her clothes off, and I would draw them. And what I found by doing this, first and foremost, was it wasn't a big deal. First of all, as soon as the person got naked and stood there posing, the naughtiness of it wore off almost immediately. The setting, the situation just didn't seem sexy or anything. It was just somebody's there to be drawn. And everybody else began drawing, and so did I. And so I started doing this. I started drawing terribly, and there was a break halfway through. Now, what I could do halfway through is sit there or go on my phone or go downstairs to the bar and have a drink and come back up again. But I decided to do something radical again. I walked around the room, I looked at other people's work, and I'd make comments about their work, well, what I thought about it. Keep it upbeat and positive. I'd show them what I've drawn, and I'd self-deprecatingly say how terrible mine is and make a joke about it. And this kind of relaxed the situation. I was making fun of myself, so people couldn't make fun of me. I'd already done it. And as I did this, as I walked around the room, I discovered something quite profound, which I've carried with me in my life ever since. Because people in that room assumed that I was confident because I was doing this, they believed that I was. That was their impression of me. They knew no other version of me. So in that room, I could be as confident as I wanted to be because people thought that I was. I just had to carry on doing that thing. And because people thought I was confident, everybody else in the room who wasn't talking to me couldn't wait for me to talk to them and make a joke about my artwork or their artwork. The teacher of the class also came up and started talking to me. The model of the class came up and started talking to me. So I would go to life drawing classes every week for the next couple of months. Now, here's the thing. I went there because I thought it would be a naughty, taboo thing to do because I've always wanted to do it. And I went there because I wanted to get better at drawing. That's what would happen at the very least. But what happened on top of that was that I made friends. I didn't go there in order to make friends. It wasn't my main goal, but it was a nice extra thing that happened on top of that. If it didn't happen, great. I've learned to draw. Who cares? If it did happen, fantastic. Something great on top of that. And then I began saying yes to other things. In work, if people invited me to the pub after work, I'd say yes, where previously I used to say no. I joined forums of things that I was interested in, whether that be computers or history or psychology or music. And one day I stumbled upon a meetup group. There was a website called meetup.com. I promise you I'm not affiliated with them, by the way. And I went on there and it was devoted to meetup groups. People would set up themselves or people who were interested in the same thing. And I found a group that was set up for expats. So people who would come to the UK from other countries for whatever reason, whether that be because they were studying or they started a job here or something, and they didn't know anybody. And everybody there wanted to make friends. So everybody turned up in a pub on their own. They didn't know anybody and everybody wanted to make friends. Well, I thought that was fantastic. So I joined that group, even though I'm not an expat. And this became the most powerful way for me to make friends. And I remember the first time I did this, I walked into a pub, walked into the section where it was being held, and I noticed some people were clustered together, talking over there. Some people clustered, talking over there. Some people standing on their own, wishing, hoping someone would approach them and talk to them. This was like shooting fish in a barrel. You could walk up to a stranger, say, "Hello, I'm Mark. Who are you?" Or, "Hi, where are you from?" And here's the thing. I was genuinely interested in them and where they were from and what language they spoke. And they were naturally interested in me, why I'm here if I'm not an expat. And I would tell them my story, that I was formerly in a high control group. I have no friends and I'm here to meet people. And again, people assumed that I was confident because I was walking up to strangers talking to them. And because they believed I was confident, I kept up that persona. And every time I was there, I was confident. And you know what, guys? The more you do that, the more you go places and you pretend to be confident, you put on a persona, the more you fake it, eventually you make it. And you realize that you can handle yourself talking to strangers. You realize that you can handle yourself walking into a room and making fun of your own work. From that meetup group, I've made lots of friends. And what I found was every week when I would go, about 80% of the people there would be new. Some people would only turn up for 1 week and they wouldn't come again. They were only passing through. So I had a constant flow of new faces, new people turning up to this group that I could befriend. And now I have friends as far as Afghanistan, India, Belgium, Russia, Poland, because people had come here for a number of years to study and then they went back home. And that was an excellent way for me to make friends. So maybe you could try those ideas yourself. Find a meetup group in your area. Find a class you want to join. Is it art? Is it crafts, music, gigs, flower arranging, whatever? It can be anything. Because the best thing is, if you find a group that you're genuinely interested in, a class that you're genuinely interested in, you're more motivated to go to it, whether or not you make friends. And you will make friends, because if you put enough people of the same interest in the same room together for a certain amount of time, it's only natural that you're clustered together with people who are like-minded like you. So my advice to ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or ex-cult members in general is to go out there, do something radical. Do something where people would say, that's not like you. Because there is no such thing as like you. We create ourselves constantly. We create and recreate ourselves constantly throughout life. So try it yourself. Go out there. And when I speak to cult members that I'm working with and when I'm trained therapists, one of the most important things I tell them is this. Go out there and have experiences. The more experiences you have, the more references you have about life, and the more things you have to talk about with the friends that you're going to make. And you will make friends. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Most people in the real world have never been in a cult, and pretty much everybody finds cults fascinating. So if people know that you used to be a cult member, that instantly makes you the most interesting person in the room. Use it to your advantage. Don't hide it. Now, if confidence is something that you still find yourself lacking, in the next couple of lessons, I'm going to touch upon that and help you rebuild your confidence. So stay tuned.